Making vocabulary lists is oppressive. Yes, today I would like to do a gentle rant against some conscious learning practices. So this video is addressed mostly to teachers, ESL or other L2 teachers. But if you are an English language learner and can follow along, this might help you as well. This might save you lots of time.
English Without Fear, where you can learn to speak English naturally through listening to stories.
So what am I talking about? I am a firm believer in acquiring a language naturally through comprehensible input, listening, watching, with the purpose of understanding, just the way babies and toddlers do. It takes hours of this kind of input, and little kids, by the time they're 4, are pretty fluent, and they acquired their mother tongue naturally. So I have been working on Spanish since June 2018. And I've been experimenting with myself, acquiring through watching YouTube videos, through listening to podcasts, through reading, that kind of thing. But I read about a conscious vocabulary learning method, and I thought, I'm going to experiment. I say that comprehensible input, the natural way, is the most effective way to acquire a language. But let me check this out so personally I will know. I followed this plan. I followed this plan for about 55 days in a row. The way it worked was like this. Through your reading, watching interactions, you come up with 20 phrases or vocab words a day. I bought myself a notebook. I followed the directions. I had a column for the English, a column for the Spanish. The idea was to write down 20 a day. Don't go back and study them, but just write them down, and every day do the same. On day 21, we were to add another step, and that was to go back to day 1, cover up the L2, for me the Spanish, look at the English, and see if I could say out loud the phrase in Spanish. For every one that I did, you could drop it. But for the ones that I got wrong or not completely right, the idea was to distill into another list, write the English, write the Spanish. So every day I wrote down my 20 new ones and I wrote a distilled list, and that started to take up time. Well, guess what happens on day 40? On day 40, you keep doing the first 2 activities, but then you go back to day 1 and you check how many of your distilled list do you know. And the ones you don't yet know, you write them down. You know, this was becoming a burden. Oh, I've got to do my vocab list, is how I would look at it at the end of the day if I hadn't done it earlier. And you know what? By day 55, I'd had enough. I gave it up. I wrote myself a note in the notebook. This was my experiment over with. The number one reason why I gave it up is because it was oppressive. It was a burden. It became a have-to-do thing. And it was taking away from enjoyable Spanish activities. So I chucked it. Was it effective? I would say that there were a few phrases that, because I had written them down several times, I would spot them in reading, and I would recognize them if I heard them. But for the number of hours I put into that, and just because it was a burden, it wasn't worth it. So ever since, and it's probably been 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I have spent that time enjoying, happily, watching Spanish, listening to more and more podcasts, reading. Do I write things down? Yeah, if I want to. I have a little notebook, and if I want to write something that I've seen several times and I'm beginning to recognize that, I might write that down. But that's a want to, that's not a have to. So, drop that. My other part of my gentle rant is, and this comes from being a language learner herself, is the effectiveness of corrections. I have noticed that if somebody corrects my pronunciation or my writing or my speaking, it has no impact. It does not change anything permanently. You might as well not do it for me. Doesn't help. What does help, though, is when I'm starting to notice something and I'm starting to wonder, I wonder how that works. At that point, my brain has noticed something and is curious. And my curiosity then gives me the desire to find out. And I'll look up something and I'll write it down. And it now has a better chance of being part of me. I find that that is effective. But, oh my goodness, I taught French, mostly French, German, and some English for 27 years. And I spent, and I'm sure you have too, lots of time correcting written work, correcting pronunciation, correcting people's spoken language. I wish I'd known that it doesn't help. So that leads me to this conclusion. I wish that when I started teaching, I got certified in Virginia. I went back to school at the age of 33 and got a degree in French and German and did all the teacher ed stuff and student taught. I wish the ed schools, I wish somebody had told me the best training will be to start acquiring a language on your own. Boy, it makes you humble and it gives you so many insights. The insights that you have as a learner affect your teaching. I got to experience this my last year of teaching in North Carolina before we moved here to Alabama. Oh, it changed my practices. I probably changed more conscientious practices last year in teaching French because I was on the other side. The shoe was on the other foot. So I would recommend that to you. If you haven't started acquiring another language right now yourself, think about that. Think about your time. Maybe give up some social media time and spend half hour a day. Start small. I started small. I started, frankly, 10 minutes a day. And then when it was June 2018, somebody said, you need to be spending an hour a day. And I thought, an hour a day? Well, it's summer. Okay. Well, podcasts are a good way. You can multitask and get input. So that's my gentle rant for the day. Leave me a comment. Let me know what your experience is with conscious learning, how effective it is. And you really won't know that unless you experiment on yourself. Well, that's it for this talk to the teachers and talk to some other learners. Look forward to sharing some more English or some more teaching insights with you another time.
Thanks for watching. For questions or comments, here's my email: